Good evening. My name is Mike Smith. This is Craig Shipton. We're from AutoTrader UK, and we're going to be talking about how we move from several large front-end applications to a Angular component library-driven ecosystem. So where do we start? Well, around 18 months ago, the area of the business we work in had maybe 3 large monolithic front-end applications written in any number of frameworks and libraries, including some that were homespun at AutoTrader long before we joined the company. And then as they do, a business requirement came in to have a consistent header across all of our applications. So as you can see, they all were kind of the same, but also slightly different. So our first thought was to go into every application, make the change, make them all look the same. But then what happens if we want to change them again in the future? We've got to go into every app, make the change again. It's not very practical. So with some of our apps written in AngularJS and our belief that Angular 2 and on from there was the future, we decided to go down the idea of an Angular component library. So where did we start with that? Well, we started working on the header component, and this is the screenshot of the exact moment we got our first component running and the excitement of that moment.
Yeah, so where did we start? So as Mike said, we've got lots of frameworks, lots of libraries. AngularJS is one of them. We knew we wanted to move to Angular because it's the future. So basically our first sort of approach was to just basically write the same component in 2 places, put it into a single library. That library then goes into our applications. But what we found out pretty soonish was that having 2 build systems, 2 package JSONs means you've got 2 dependency trees, which is an absolute nightmare to manage. And ultimately, maintaining the same component in 2 places, it was clumsy. Because you're doubling your work. Anytime you've got a bug, you need to do it twice. So ultimately, we just cut AngularJS because we found a much better solution. And for us, that was ng upgrade. So we could just develop our Angular components in one place, and then simply just drop them into our existing AngularJS apps as and when we needed to. And then what we could do is we could just slowly just remove all of our old AngularJS apps as time goes on, and just replace them with the Angular 2 versions at that point in time going forward.
So once we decided how to build our libraries, we had to come up with a process for building all of our components and managing that library. So we broke it down into a series of steps. So we try and work design first. So we decide what component we want to build. Our designers will go away and build that in a tablet, desktop, and mobile view. And we try and build every component responsively. Once we're happy with the designs, the next thing we'll do is a kind of noun-verb extraction exercise and break that top-level component down into its smaller subcomponents. Once we're happy with that broken down, we then build the view model for our top-level component. So every top-level component, we have one single input, and that's the model which represents the data in that component. So for example, in our header, we've got the logo, the navigation on the left, the navigation on the right, the account section, and a mobile alert. So once we're happy with the view model for our top-level component, we'll then build out the component, have some skeleton methods, write the test for them, and then implement our components. Once we're happy that all our code is correct, we've built a little sandbox Webpack application, which means we can input our view models, spin up our application, and just check that the user interactions and the design and components together work correctly. And if we're happy with that, we then publish our library to our internal NPM repository, and then our client apps can pull that code down into themselves. So we've got 3 applications here, one showing the mobile view, the desktop, and the tablet view of our header. And the tablet application here is actually an Angular 1 application running our Angular 4 header in ng upgrade.
All right, so with that, where are we now? So we've got a total of 35 shared components across all of our AngularJS and Angular apps from the same library, 9 directives, and finally, just the one pipe. It's last but not least. It's the one we're quite fond of, really. It's the indefinite article pipe. So if you don't know what indefinite article is, it's when you stick an A or an an in front of a word. So given we do cars, you give it Ford, you get a Ford. You give it Alfa Romeo, you get an Alfa Romeo. It's very important. Over the course of 18 months, we've done 119 releases to our internal node repository. We've done 7 open source contributions, including ng Chartist, ng Sidebar, and some others. I can't remember right now. And we've got a total of 6 live applications using this library. So that concludes our lightning talk. We have an engineering blog at AutoTrader. Feel free to give it a read. We've got 3 posts on there right now covering Angular stuff for you to have a look at.